Dear participants, this is Dr. Rajesh Kumar, Associate Professor of Political Science, School of Social Sciences, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, Punjab. I have been teaching this subject for past 2 decades. This has been one subject which has been very close to my heart. Having specialized in Indian Constitution, especially in post-independence period. Friends, today's presentation is divided under 4 sections. First part shall deal with the introduction one, where I would be talking about the various stages of this writing of Constitution, especially the exercise on part of members of Constituent Assembly, then the circumstances in which this Constitution got adopted and finally got enforced on 26th of January 1950. Then I will also be focusing upon various outlooks of Indian Constitution, which will help us in understanding the various features of Indian Constitution. Then I will move on to next part, which shall focus upon the core values of Indian Constitution as enshrined in the preamble to the Indian Constitution. Then I will also prefer to discuss with you people those crucial ethical values of Indian Constitution which are supposed to remain much relevant in contemporary timings. And then finally, at last, we'll summarize the things and conclude today's presentation. Friends, when we look at the Constitution, it is supposed to be a sort of document prescribing certain rules, guidelines, principles, etc. So any entity for that matter, country, state entity or non-state entities, they are supposed to have Constitution for themselves. And that it goes with country like India also, that at the time of departure of Britishers, they agreed to get this Constituent Assembly set up so that people of India can have their own constitution. So far Indian Constitution is concerned, it has to be seen in a kind of particular type of background. That is, we have to look at the history of India under Britishers. We also have to bear within our minds, that is, the aspirations of Indian people. We also have to bear within our minds the very philosophy of Indian Constitution, and then last thing, that is what you call how this Constitution has got operationalized in post-independence period. When we look at this making of Indian Constitution, we are aware that it was on 26th of November 1949, Indian Constitution got readied under the presidency of Dr. Rajendra Prasad and under the chairmanship of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar ji, who was the chairperson of the drafting committee of writing of the Indian Constitution. This Constitution, it was supposed to be an outcome of various historical documents, especially in post 1857 period. We had several charter acts, and then when you move into early 20th century in the backdrop of First World War and end of World War, arrival of Gandhiji in our country, beginning of the national freedom struggle movement, and then this demand onto the part of people of India to get those political values made available to them in this part of the subcontinent, that is Indian subcontinent. Because in Europe, wave of political wave was blowing, through which people were supposed to be enjoying the real fruits of liberty, freedom, self-rule, constitutionalism, etc., in forms of various rights, etc. So it was expected that Britishers, though were here in India for past several centuries, past 2.5 centuries for that matter, and they will also come forward in providing similar kind of provisions, facilities, rights to people of this subcontinent. So when we say aspirations of Indian people, we find that under the leadership of Indian National Congress, led by stalwarts like Gandhi, Nehru, other members of radical group or moderate group, etc. They had a very important role to play in applying pressures upon Britishes so that they not only increase the participation of Indian people at the level of government, they also allow us to what you call contest in the elections, allow us to what you call cast our votes, allow us to share power with them. So this is how we find that those various acts of 1909, Government of India Act of 1919, Government of India Act of 1935 were supposed to have played very, very important role in delegating certain amount of powers on part of local leadership, or it also helped to a very large extent in getting the participation of Indians improved at the government level. Friends, participants, it is finally this Constitution of India got readied on 26th of November 1949, as it was said in the beginning of my talk. Then, of course, because of historical reasons, to make it sure that it coincides with that very important historical date of Lahore Declaration, that leaders of the country, they waited till 26th of January when this constitution was supposed to have got operationalized, come into force. Friends, looking at the ethical values, which is supposed to be one of the hallmarks of Indian constitution, basically ethical values would demand that what is the status of integrity, what is the status of transparency, what is the status of accountability, what is the status of people's participation, what is the status of liberty, freedom onto the part of citizens, etc. So it is these kind of things which we need to take into our account, and it is the beauty of the India's preamble to the Indian Constitution, where all these political values are rightly reflected under different headings. That is basically this concept of justice, liberty, equality, impartiality, or it also talks about this public welfare, fraternity, or sort of peace, international order, etc. So, preamble to the Indian Constitution, it has these kind of what you call pillars, which are, as I said to people, that is in the very first opening statements, it talks about the nature of country which was supposed to have come into being in post-independence periods. India were to be a sovereign country, what you call socialist, secular, democratic republic, and it was supposed to have been promised to secure all its citizens this concept of justice of social, economic, political nature. Before that, liberty of thought, expression, faith and worship, and equality of status and opportunity, and for finally the concept of fraternity. I would like to point out here that this word secular, the word socialist were incorporated in the Indian Constitution much later, somewhere in 1976-77, as a result of 42nd Amendment to the Indian Constitution. Though a question gets asked, raised, that till 1976, what was the status of our country? Were we not a secular or were we not socialist that way? But I would like to make this point very clear that there are ample provisions within the Indian Constitution in the Fundamental Rights chapter, that is part 3 of Indian Constitution, where we find that it gives all citizens of the country this right to practice their religion, faith, worship, etc. Or it also what you call recognizes fundamental rights onto the part of people belonging to minority sections, whether they are of linguistic nature or ethnic nature, and so forth. So that way, and apart from that, if we happen to look at the contents of Directive Principle State Policy, certainly good number of provisions they were there which would have pointed us in the direction of what you call socialism, whether it was philosophy of Gandhi or philosophy of Nehru, or blend of Gandhian socialism or Nehruvian socialism, so forth. So this is how these values are supposed to have found their mention in Indian Constitution, so far the preamble of Indian Constitution is concerned. I won't be going into that background, that objective resolutions, etc. This Constitution promised to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual. If we happen to pay attention on these core values like justice, liberty, and equality, they form the what you call core principles of Indian Constitution. Justice, especially of social, political, economic nature, because a country of India's nature, that is, diversity has been the hallmark of Indian system. Plurality has been the hallmark of Indian system. That too, the kind of backgrounds in which India became independent, it was only a very smaller section of country's people who were supposed to have mattered at the highest level. Large section of country's population was supposed to have constituted the bottom strata of the society. So there was lied a very important responsibility on part of makers of Indian Constitution that in post-independence period, these values of Indian Constitution, they should help them in overcoming our weaknesses. They should help us in getting a diversity of our country preserved, pluralistic characteristic of our country preserved, what you call promote a sort of social harmony onto the part of people. It was supposed to have encouraged not only public welfare, it was not only supposed to have bridged the gap between rich and poor in the name of socialistic principles, it was also supposed to provide us a sort of roadmap in future. Then, of course, one of the very important areas of our Indian Constitution has a provision of Part 3 of Indian Constitution, which talks about this different types of fundamental rights under article right from 14 to almost 35, 36. They provide us very important basis. These rights, which are not only available to citizens, they are also available to non-citizens at times, especially when it comes to the question of people of foreign origin onto a move to our country. It is the question of their right to life, right to their what you call personal liberty, etc. It stands secured. But however, when it came to the question of what you call providing a sort of identity, we have very important provisions of citizenship in our Indian Constitution. Then, friends, we have articles 14, 15, 16, especially if you talk about that different types of what you call equality before law, equal opportunities before law. When you talk about what you call this ending of discrimination of general nature, ending of discrimination of particular nature under Article 15, or for that matter under Article 16, equality of opportunity in terms of what you call public employment, etc. So they formed very important bases of Indian Constitution in the direction of achieving the overall goal of justice, whether it was of political nature or it was of economic nature, or even if it was of social nature. Yes, when we say social nature, basically India is a country where we have certain availability of social evils which discriminate certain section of the society. So makers of Indian Constitution wanted that we must move in the direction of mass participation. We must move in the direction of emancipation of all sections of the society. In Indian Constitution, a term is used for them, that is SC, BCs, socially and educationally backward classes. So under Article 15 and under Article 16, they were supposed to be having important provisions so that government of the day would be in position to enact important legislations making it sure that they don't get challenged at the level of high courts or Supreme Court under Article 32, etc. So special provisions for certain sections of the society in the direction of achieving the goals of justice. So for liberty is concerned, we have very adequate provisions under Article 19, which talks about those 6 types of freedoms, right from what you call freedom of movement, thought, expression, picking up of profession, and so forth. Then we also have what you call this concept of very important provisions for certain sections of the society, that is abolition of untouchability under Article 17, and then when we look at the contents of Article 21, that is right to life and personal liberty, it is a remarkable provision in Indian Constitution. If I were to share with you people the contents of Article 21, we were not to go by the simple meaning of that content of Article 21, right to one's life and personal liberty. Participants, we have to give enormous amount of credit to the country's judiciary, which have given us all kinds of interpretation in getting the scope, idea of this right to life and personal liberty expanded. And net result is that it is not the question of right to life and personal liberty of simplest nature, animal nature. For that matter, we have to have right to life based upon dignity. That is the hallmark of Indian system, and it is in this context that the role of judiciary ought to be appreciated, whereas where they have taken lot of initiative on their own part in getting these rights further expanded, and as a result of that, I can say this concept of judicial activism, as a result of concept of this encouraging concept of public interest litigations, this idea of right to life stands completely expanded, and a new set of 27 rights they have come into being. So that was the concept of fundamental rights. Of course, we also find the importance of fundamental duties. Before that, we have certain things which stand enshrined in Part 4 of Indian Constitution, that directive principles of state policy. Participants, when we look at the directive contents of directive principles of state policy, it is here again we find some of the most important political values, social values, economic values of Indian Constitution. They stand enshrined because the makers of Indian Constitution knew it for sure that fundamental rights are well protected against the state. A non-implementation of fundamental rights or any circumvention of fundamental rights, citizens shall have the right to knock at the doors of Supreme Court or High Court for that matter and get some instant relief. But when it came to the question of putting certain political values or social values or economic values under this Part 4 of Part 4 of Indian Constitution titled as Directive Principles of State Policy, idea was that whenever any legislative business would be undertaken by those who are at the helm of affairs, either at the state legislature level or at the union legislature level, they all will bear, were supposed to remain inspired by what is written in this particular Part 4 of Indian Constitution, especially articles right from 36, 37 or to almost 51. So largely the Gandhian principles, things about children, their education, provisions regarding women, provisions regarding employment, universal education, or even we are supposed to have provisions for getting certain things put in place, like visualization regarding uniform civil code, etc. So this is how directive principles of state policy were supposed to be understood. What I would like to emphasize here, that because of the role of the judiciary, the compartmentalization between fundamental rights chapter, that is Part 3, and the contents of directive principles of state policy chapter, they have got narrowed down, they have got blurred actually. And as a result of that, the enjoyment of different types of duty rights have become much more easier on part of citizens of the country, including the people belonging to this important group, that is what we call socially, educationally backward classes. Participants, I move on to next important section, that is, apart from what has been said in the preamble to the Indian Constitution, I would like to draw your attention around these 5-6 more most important points, which are supposed to be what we call inspiring everyone in contemporary timings. That is the provisions of what we call democracy, that is commitment to democracy, number one, which would prove or help us in understanding that how it has changed the political landscape of the country. Another point which I would like to emphasize upon, that is this concept of citizenry to all, then this concept of social justice, then constitutional measures for emancipation of disadvantaged section of the society, then this concept of secularism, and finally the concept of asymmetrical federalism. Participants, these 6 things which I said to you people right now, for me they are very, very important, and if I were to elaborate upon those 6 points once again, that especially commitment to democracy, I have no hesitation in telling that India has been one country which has emerged as the largest leading democratic nations at the world level. Close to 800 million people participating in electoral process, participating in choosing their representatives at different levels, 3-tier system of government, and everywhere these very people were supposed to have participated, whether it is election of government choosing at rural level, Panchayati Raj system, or urban level, or state legislative level, or for that matter even union level. So commitment to democracy has been very, very important for our system, our political system that way. So far Indian citizens are concerned, it did help us in getting this gap reduced between elites and masses. Because gone are the days when Indian political setup could have been blamed for reflecting the what you call viewpoints of elites only, which Indian system inherited after the departure of Britishes. But today we find that because of the foolproof provisions in the Indian Constitution, now emancipation of different sections of people has already taken, and they can be seen, their visibility has improved. I mean to say, apart from the constitutional provisions regarding SC community and ST community at the level of legislatures, we also see the significant transformation taking place onto the part of people belonging to OBC community at the political level, etc. So this is how we have to relish or celebrate this achievement on account of democracy. I move on to next point, that is citizenry to all. Indian Constitution has to be appreciated for having given this right to universal franchisee without making any discrimination between what you call discrimination of gender nature, discrimination of social nature, or discrimination of any socio-economic status nature. So India was one of the most modern countries in early 20th century which went whole hog in providing this right to universal franchisee to all citizens across board. And the net result has been that as on date in 2021, that is our last election in 2019, almost 800 million people participated in this electoral process. So this citizenship was supposed to have given them a lot of security, right to life, personal liberty, or a sort of identity, etc. Then if we talk about this concept of social justice, we had very important provisions in our part 3 of Indian Constitution, which are supposed to have ensured, helped government in achieving the goals of social justice, especially people belonging to what you call SEBC community. So when it came to the question of their employment. When it came to the question of providing them education, so this concept of affirmative policies, and it had to be taken in a positive manner. So positive aspects of affirmative policies, this is how it was supposed to have helped Government of India in achieving the goals of social justice on part of people belonging to SC/ST community or people belonging to OBC communities, etc. Then I come to the point of secularism. Of course, India was supposed to again celebrate this concept of secularism for one very important reason, because secularism was supposed to be a hallmark of any government right from post day of independence, despite the fact that though it was inserted in the preamble much later. Secularism has to be understood in a slightly different manner, that government to state was supposed to maintain equidistance between people belonging to different religious groupings actually. So that way it was supposed to be a very, very progressive idea, unlike the ideas which were supposed to be seen on part of UK, where Christianity was supposed to be enjoying a sort of primacy, or Christianity was supposed to be also enjoying primacy, not only in case of UK system, also in case of US system, etc. So secularism did help government in making sure that people practice their own religious things, etc. And top of the above, also providing some important rights to the people belonging to religious minorities group, up to this extent that they are supposed to enjoying those various rights under Article 26, 27, 29, 30, etc. That they can maintain their own educational institution, etc. Lastly, I will certainly talk about this nature of asymmetrical federalism. That is how to have a system where states would cooperate with the union government, and we have seen a country covering a long journey, long distance in this particular direction, despite the fact that idea of India was supposed to remain intact, and we are supposed to have a sort of system of quasi-federal nature, so that there is an important division of power between union government and state government, as reflected in the Schedule 7 of Indian Constitution. It will be difficult for me to dwell upon the contents of Schedule 7 right now, but over a period of time, what we have seen, this idea of cooperative federalism has grown very, very stronger on part of we, the people of India. Then, of course, Indian Constitution is supposed to have also important provisions, like under Part 4 of Indian Constitution, as it was said to you people in the beginning also, that is Directive Principle of State Policy, describing the values of common good and life based upon dignity. Then, of course, it was supposed to have important provisions in making sure that country has important progressive laws over a period of time, especially when you talk about this content of what you call UCC, that is Uniform Civil Code, etc. Then getting this gap between rich and poor reduced. So in economic sphere, important provisions were supposed to be there in that chapter. Then, as I said, very important provisions regarding what you call improving the conditions of children, improving the conditions of women, improving the conditions of people belonging to weaker sections of the society, etc. Then, of course, some very important, beautiful things, they are also supposed to be there in our that Part 4 of Indian Constitution, which is supposed to be focusing upon this concept of agriculture, then taking care of environment, etc. So this is how we are supposed to have looked upon the various ethical values of Indian Constitution, which were supposed to be remaining available in not in the preamble to the Indian Constitution, which was supposed to have highlighted a lot upon the philosophy of Indian Constitution. Then, of course, when we talk about the contributions of leaders of this country who had this responsibility of having given this constitution to people of India, how can you forget the contributions made by the tallest leader of the country, like Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, and long queue of other rungs of leaders. But before we conclude, I would certainly like to read out certain quotations beautifully describing the core of crux of Indian Constitution on part of leaders. Especially, I read out one beautiful quote of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, and within quotes, he said, "I like the religion that teaches liberty, equality, and fraternity." Quotes close. So, in very nutshell manner, this statement of Ambedkar Sahab, it talks about the very important things which are enshrined in the Indian Constitution in the preamble itself. I also take this opportunity to read out another quotation on part of Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi. I read out the quote, "Our ability to reach unity in diversity will be the beauty and the test of our civilization." Once again, all these values visualized on part of Father of the Nation, they stand reflected in various provisions of Indian Constitution. That has been the real strength of Indian Constitution, taking care of every single citizen of the country. I also read out another beautiful quotation on part of another important leader of India's freedom struggle movement, Sardar Patel, within quotes, "Every Indian should now forget that he is a Rajput, a Sikh, or a Jat. He must remember that he is an Indian and he has every right in his country, but with certain duties." Last but not the least, I read out one quotation on part of Swami Vivekananda when he said, "Every nation has a message to deliver, a mission to fulfill, a destiny to reach. The mission of India has been to guide humanity." So participants, above quotes are beautifully reflecting the spirit of Indian Constitution and make it a living document. Thank you so much.